We're now going to look at factoring some quadratic expressions. Again, these are quadratic because of the squared. That's the highest degree term, so you know that they're quadratic functions. So we're going to actually factor these quadratic expressions. There's two different ways you can do it. There's guess and check, and there's Mfdarm. And we've used Mfdarm before. And Mfdarm stands for multiply A times C, factor, divide by A, reduce, and move. So the D and the A are actually together, okay? Now, so the first thing we need to look at is our A term. Our A term is 2. It's not 1. So then I need to see, is there anything I can factor out of this expression? Is there a GCF? Is there a common factor between these three terms? And there's not. So I have to proceed with Mfdarm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the A times the C, 2 times 12, and that gives me 24. So I'm going to factor the 24. It's 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 8 and 3, and 6 and 4. So basically what I'm going to be looking for in Mfdarm is I'm looking for two factors of 24 that, because the C term is negative, are going to subtract to give me 5. And that's going to be 8 and 3 right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite these factors. And I'm going to put an 8 here and a 3 here. That's how I got my 5. Now, I'm going to look, I wanted a positive 5. So that means the 8 has to be positive. That means whatever the sign of the B term is, that's your largest one. The largest factor gets it. And then because it's a negative 12, I have to have negative, positive times negative. Now the 8 and the negative 3 do give you 5. That's also how you can figure out what symbol you get. The bigger one gets the same sign as the B term, and then the other one, it just depends on how you get this, or what the sign of the C term is. But you're not done yet. This is where a lot of people make mistakes in Mfdarm. There is a last step, and that is the third step, which is the divide by A step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by A. So I'm going to take the A term, which is 2, that's going to be my dA, and I'm going to divide both of these by my A term. Remember, multiply A times C, factor, which is what we did, and then divide by A. Once I divide by A, I'm going to end up with Rm, which is reduce and move. The 8 over 2 can be reduced to 4, but the 3 over 2 cannot be reduced. This is not reducible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the denominator, and that's going to become 2x minus 3. So our final answer is x plus 4 times 2x minus 3. And that's how you use Mfdarm. Some of you are good at guess and check, and you like to use guess and check, and you could do, you know it's going to be 2x and x, and you try to figure out the factors. That's fine. Mfdarm is just a fail-safe way to get the answer correct each time. So let's look at 6b. 6b is 3x squared plus 12x plus 9. Now, in order for Mfdarm to work, we have to look ahead of time and see if there is a common factor. If there's a common factor in all the terms and you don't pull it out, Mfdarm's not going to work. So between 3, 12, and 9, I can actually factor out a 3. So that's going to leave me with x squared plus 4x plus 3 on the inside. Now my A term is 1, so I can skip a lot of these steps. So let's look at what's on the inside. Leave the 3 out there. The 3 stays here. I'm going to factor this 3, which is obviously 3 and 1. And I'm looking for two factors of 3 that add to 4. And there they are, 3 and 1. So I'm going to write x and 3 and 1. Now I've got to decide what symbols they get. Well, the B term is positive. That means the larger factor has to be positive. I've got to get positive 4 somehow, so that has to be a positive 1. You also know it has to be positive because the C term is positive, which means we have to have a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. So on this one, we're done. Why do we not have to divide by A here? Well, what's our A term? Once I factored out the 3, the A term was 1. There's no need to divide. I mean, we could put divided by 1 and divided by 1, but we're going to end up in the same place. Okay? So let's look at the last one, and let's look at C. And C is x squared minus 6x plus 5. Once again, in this one, our A term is 1, so we don't have to do all the Mfdarm. We can just start by factoring the 5, which is our C term. 5 and 1 are our only options. I'm looking for 2 factors of 5 that add to give me 6. Well, the only 2 I have are the only 2 that work. So you're going to write x and 5 and 1. And then I'm going to just look at my B term. It's negative. I need negative 6. So the 5 has to be negative. And since this one's positive, it's got to be a negative times a negative, which also works because negative 5 and negative 1 gives you negative 6. So there is your answer. So that is how you factor the quadratic expressions using Mfdarm or just regular factoring method.